So in this session, we are going to have a discussions about the HTML elements. The first topic we are going to discuss is about the HTML tags and elements. Any string of the form, the angular brackets is a tag. All tags in the document instance of Hello World are either end tags or start tags. The end tags, they begin with the angular bracket and a slash. Every HTML document has two kinds of information. One is the markup information and another one is called as a character data. The markup information is contained in tags and the text contained within the angular brackets is called as the element name. Any non-markup text is called as a character data and is normally displayed by the browser. The start tag and the corresponding end tag along with all of the document between the tags is called as element of the document. Portions between tags excluding its start and end tags is called as a content of the elements. So this is a representations of the HTML document in the form of a tree and is called as a HTML element tree. The root of the HTML document is going to be the HTML. It has two child elements, one is head, another one is body. The head element in turn, it contains a child element called as a title. In addition to it, it can have other elements also, such as script, style, etc. Next one is a body element, where we are going to display, where we are going to have the contents that is going to be displayed in the content area. One of the elements that can be placed within the body is going to be the paragraph element. So here we are representing every elements in the form of a parent-child relationship. The first one in our HTML document is the doc type declaration, where we specify the name of the root elements. Here in a HTML document, since HTML is going to be the root element followed by doc type, they have to specify HTML. The HTML in turn, it contains two child elements, one is the head, another one is the body. The body element, it contains the information to be displayed in the browser client area. The head element contains information used for other purposes by the browser. The informations may be the title, which should be displayed in your title bar of the browser window, the scripts which specifies whether we are using a JavaScript or VB script, that is a client-side programs. Another information, it may be the style information, what kind of style we are going to apply for your HTML document, that is how we are going to present the information to the user, etc. The history of HTML. In 1990, HTML was first invented by Tim Berners-Lee. In 1993, the Mosaic browser was first developed. It adds supports for images, sound and video to HTML. After that, during the year 1994 to 1997, there was a browser war between Netscape and Microsoft. They developed their own browsers and they added their own markups tags to it. As a result, there was no proper standard between the tag elements that is used between the browsers. In 1997 to 12, in order to have a common standard, the World Wide Web Consortium recommendations, they defined the HTML. Next topic we are going to discuss is about how to define HTML. The HTML can be defined under two aspects. One is based upon the syntax of the language, another one based upon the semantics of the language. Syntax of the language, it defines which string of characters represent document and which do not. Whereas semantics of the language, it provides a description of what the various elements of a syntactically correct document mean. For example, if you are using a paragraph element, it specifies everything that is enclosed within the paragraph element, it must be displayed as a paragraph. This one is called as a semantics, whereas the usage of p tag is called as a, for representing a paragraph, is called as syntax of the language. Meta language, the language used to describe the syntax of other languages, is called as a meta language. For example, the semantics of the elements and attributes in HTML 4.01 is defined using the natural language W3C HTML 4.01. The syntax of Java described using Backus norm form notation. BNF can also be used to define syntax of HTML, but usually HTML is used. In syntax itself, we have two different types of syntax. One is the abstract syntax, another one is the concrete syntax. The abstract syntax, it defines a language at the level of abstract syntax tree. So it defines what elements can be contained in the tree. So already we have discussed about the HTML element tree. So it represents what elements can appear in that tree. Then it describes what attributes can be associated with each element and what values these attributes can take. Another information also we can include, that is the order in which the child of the elements can occur within the HTML element tree. Next one is the concrete syntax. The concrete syntax defines how the tree structure is represented within the language, which characters are used to delimit the tags, for example the angular brackets, and how these characters can be escaped. It also specifies whether element names are case sensitive or not. It also specifies whether the attribute values must be quoted or not. HTML versions. HTML 4.01 syntax defined using standard generalized markup language. We have XHTML 1.0. The syntax is defined using the extensible markup languages. The major difference, so we are going to have a discussion about which is common between XHTML 4.01 and XHTML 1.0. Both are equivalent, in terms of in semantics and abstract syntax level. So the difference, it comes under our concrete syntax level. Concrete syntax, we specify in terms of the tags that are used for the characters that are used for delimiting the tags and so on. The first major difference is HTML allows some tag omissions. The end tags, it may be omitted. The HTML elements and attribute names are lowercase. XHTML requires that attribute values must be quoted, whereas these restrictions, it can be relaxed in case of HTML, but we have to other it in case of your XHTML. This is the overall structure. The HTML is the standard generalized markup language and it is called as the mother of the markup languages. So it can be considered as a superset of XML. And HTML, it is used for defining the syntax of HTML of different versions, and these HTML can be processed by using your HTML tools. Whereas in XML, it defines the syntax of XHTML 1.0 and other versions of XHTML, and it can be processed by both HTML tools and XML tools. One of the difference comes here is in HTML, we can relax some of the constraints as a result. So only we are having few tools for validating the HTML documents. Whereas in case of XHTML document, it adheres to the syntax and it follows the strict rules, so it can be easily processed. So we have relatively many XML tools. We are having various flavors of HTML. For HTML 4.01 and XHTML 1.0, the document type declaration can be used to select one of the three flavors. The three flavors are strict, transitional, and frame set. The strict one is an ideal in case of your W3 consortium. The transitional, it includes deprecated elements and attributes. So the W3C recommends the use of the style sheets instead of using a transition. The frame set, it supports the frames. The frames means we have multiple windows within the client area, and each window we can have a display of various pages. So if we want to specify which flavor of HTML we want to use, we use the different document type declarations. So if you want to use a strict flavor, so at the start of your HTML document, we should have the doc type. The doc type tag initially has HTML, which specifies the root element. Next one, here we specify strict.dtt. It specifies that we are using here strict flavor. If we want to use your frameset flavor, then instead of strict.dtt, we have to use frameset.dtt. If we want to use the transitional flavor, we have to use loose.dtt. So we have to include this particular tag at the start of your HTML document. XHTML whitespace. The whole whitespace characters carries written line feet, space and horizontal tab. In HTML, normally the character data is normalized. All the whitespace character is converted into space characters. Leading and trailing spaces are trimmed. Multiple consecutive space characters are replaced by a single space characters. That is one of the major thing in case of HTML. In this example, we see that in a paragraph tag we have hello world. After hello world, we have one line space. After that, we are having this is my second HTML paragraph. Since according to XML HTML white space, so all the spaces, they are all whether it is going to be enter or anything, it was going to be converted into a single space. So as a result, in your display between word hyphen exclamation and T, we have a single space. So all the space characters, they are truncated into a single space. This is our default behavior. Then in XHTML white spaces, suppose we want to display it as a new one, means we have to include two paragraph tags. The paragraph tag, it has a meaning that it leaves a space, one line of space above and below it. So the hello world, and this is my second HTML paragraph, they are displayed. So next one we are going to discuss is about the unrecognized HTML elements. What happens when some unrecognized HTML elements occurs in our document? In this example, we have TITL, which cannot be recognized by a browser. In such case, what happens is the browser, it skips that element and it takes only the content, and the content, it will be displayed in the body section. So this is what happens. So here the misspelled element name we are having it. So here instead of displaying the title character on the title bar, it will be displayed in the body area. So in case of if it is having some unrecognized attribute names, the browser assumes that the attribute is not at all present and the property, it will not be applied. So application is in HTML document may have errors even if it displays properly. So for validating the HTML document, we need a HTML validator for checking the syntax. Another one is the HTML references. Suppose we want to display angular bracket, we can't display it directly. Instead of that, we are going for two types. One is the character reference, another one is the entity reference. Suppose we want to display lesson, as it is going to be the start of the tag, we can represent it as ampersand LT semicolon. Here LT is a mnemonic which stands for less than LT. If I want to display greater than symbol, I have to use ampersand GT semicolon. Character reference means instead of representing a less than symbol, we have to use a Unicode code point. So for example, suppose we want to represent less than symbol, means we can use ampersand hash 60 semicolon or corresponding other values. So this is a way for representing. So why we are using these references is because whenever a browser encounters a angular bracket less than symbol, it assumes that it is going to be the start of the tag